What is going on? Welcome to Car Talks with Cal, where I mull over something random that I'm thinking about in my brain. So me and a client were talking this morning about this idea of success, how to gain it, what it is, and I think from a very just general, fundamental, definitional starting point, how someone could view success is just the attaining of something that you set out to accomplish. So you can have success in your business, success in your marriage, success in the gym. So anything that you set out to achieve, if you accomplish that, you could label that as success. But then we get into the more individual, nuanced components of success, where success for one person in one person's marriage might look very different than success in another person's marriage or in their business, etc. There might be different. Success in one person's business might be $100,000. Success in another person's business might be $1 million, whatever. So there's the tangibles and the variables that are different. And so a few of the things that maybe make up the differences of what one person desires versus another person desires is, there's a few different things. And this isn't all of them, but you have your beliefs. So if one person believes that God exists and another person doesn't believe that God exists, well then that might influence their expectation or definition for themselves personally of what success looks like. And so you also have those components that influence what success looks like, but then you also have the things that influence your ability to attain that thing. So you have your expectation of what success is like in your opinion, but then there's also, okay, so what are the properties that make up the steps to achieving that? And there's a lot of different ones that are thrown out there. So there's discipline, there's motivation, there's enjoyment, there's habits. And a lot of times what happens is we try to pull out which of these is the most important, because that's what people want to hear. They want to hear, what is the one thing I have to do? Like, what is the one thing I really have to focus on? And so I want to challenge that and give maybe a different perspective. And the perspective I want to give is what I call the zoom out and then zoom in approach. And the zoom out, zoom in approach, it's a thought process that I use specifically for the people that I work with as a pain-free performance coach. Is you can apply this to any problem in life, right? So right now the problem that we're talking about is how to achieve success. That's the problem that we're facing. And so let's zoom out. You have to get a bird's eye view of the situation. And so we have to ask ourselves, like, okay, it's not just this one thing. It's not just discipline. It's not just motivation. It's not just habit. It's not just your environment. What is it? So let's zoom out, and we see that it's a very complex system that you realize, like, oh wow, it's not just this one thing. You're a human being who has, like, if you look at somebody's life, I mean, the different I guess you could call it highways and avenues that impact different components of their life is just multidimensional. And so you have to do that. You have to get the full picture, because if you don't zoom out first, you're going to be you're going to miss a lot of things. So an example I'll give is, oftentimes in the world that I'm in, like pain-free performance, there's a lot of coaches out there that will say, the reason that your knee is in pain is because your glute's not firing, right? So they just zero in on one thing, and then they preach that one thing, or they create a system based off of one thing. And some people that works, and then some people it doesn't. But then people get married to the system. They get married to essentially the variables or the variable itself, and they're not able to actually zoom out and see the big picture. It's like, well, maybe it's not your glute firing. Maybe it's the fact that, I don't know, you just got over a 20-year marriage divorce. Like, there's actual physiological or psychological components that play into your pain. Maybe it's the fact that you have a newborn baby and you're getting like 3 hours of sleep a night. So that's what I'm talking about when I say you have to zoom out, and you have to be able to understand that it's not just this one thing. But then comes another problem. So you zoom out, and now you have this ultra complex problem. And so then you can be easily overwhelmed. So you have this very complex problem of the human body or business or human behavior. And so how do you fix that? You have to zoom back in. So once you get this big picture, once you get kind of this idea, it's like, okay, now we have to zoom back in and we have to focus on one thing. And you do basic deductive reasoning. And the way that you do good deductive reasoning is by having a good solid backing of information. That's why information is so powerful, is because it allows you to have more at your disposal to make a better decision. So you're not always going to make the right decision, and there's trial and error that's involved. But the more information, and not necessarily more info, like actual facts, but the more also experiential information that you have, the more that you practice these things or experience these things, you'll know what a good starting point is or a bad starting point is. So you start out with, after you zone out, you have to zoom back in. You have this information backing. So if you have a limited amount of information, you're not going to make very good decisions, and vice versa. You're going to make better decisions, and the process is going to be a lot quicker, a lot more effective and efficient if you have better, more solid information. That's why learning, having coaches, having mentors, things like that is just so valuable. In my opinion, as a coach myself, I've had many coaches and mentors in the past. And it's not necessarily that you 100% need those things, because you can figure those things out on your own, but it's exponentially quicker. And so, anywho, the reality is that the information that you start with is going to give you a better starting point. And so now that you have your good starting point, and you zoom back in, you focus on what we call our goal. And now this is something that's different to me than how most people see it. I would see your goal as something that's untangible, something that you cannot grasp, that's in the future. And I like to label things more as projects, because projects put your mindset more in a process-oriented state. So you're not focusing on trying to attain this untangible thing in the future, like I just want to be fit. Like, what does that mean? So you have to have a project that keeps you going and keeps you interested and keeps your mind engaged on the next steps, and you become more, like I said, process oriented. So you need to be process oriented in all this. And so anyway, so you zoom in, you have your big goal, your big picture, but you zoom in on one project. So let's say that I want to be fit. Let's say I want to get stronger, right? Okay, that's my big goal. But my success, my tangible project that I'm working on, let's say I want to do 10 muscle ups or something like that. Cool. So now I have this goal, this project that I'm zeroing in on, right? So my big goal is I want my success indicator is getting stronger, and my indicator of that success is being able to do 10 muscle ups. Cool. So I've created a project, I've created a goal, I've created a standard of what that looks like, and how I define what success is in that situation. 10 muscle ups, boom. So once I get that, that'll mean success. All right, so now what I have to do is I have to figure out the different variables. And so again, it all comes back to your ability to have the right information. So if you don't know how to train, if you don't know how to manage your training volume, intensity, understanding how to progress exercises and things, well, you're not going to know what to do. So, one thing you can do is you can search it yourself, or you could go and you could find a mentor who can teach you how to get to 10 muscle ups or whatever. So either way you cut it, that's the goal. And so you zoom in on the project, on that specific thing, and then you attain that thing. And so you can apply that process to anything. And I would say that once you apply that, the question then becomes, well, how do you apply that? And I would say it's really not that complicated. It's simply just, you have to be intentional, you have to put forth effort, and you have to put in the reps. Now, I would say the repetitions, where most people get it wrong, they try to put in a bunch of repetitions starting off, right? They just try to throw a bunch of repetitions right away. That's totally fine if you have the time and the resources available to do that. But if you're a new parent or something, or life, your season of life just doesn't allow you to do that. Practically speaking, you have to be able to accumulate quality reps over a long period of time. So I would say that the quantity is necessary, because you have to get in the repetition to get good at something or proficient at something. But those things are the quantity is going to come over time. If you just jam quantity into a small amount of time, then you're going to significantly lose out on the quality. So I personally would rather people focus on quality over an expanded amount of time, and that is where you get the repetitions. And so I would just say that the person who puts in high repetitions for 2 months versus the person who puts in quality repetitions over the course of a year the person who has the longer duration, they're going to come out on top, because they're going to have the same amount of reps, but they're all going to be more quality because they drew it out over a long period of time. So that's kind of my debrief. To summarize, how to be successful is, number one, you have to define it. You have to define it for yourself. You have to zoom out and see the big picture. to understand, maybe some of the nuances of what it's going to take to attain that thing, instead of just focusing on one thing, like it is my lack of discipline, or it is I'm still in pain because my glute is not firing, yada, yada, yada. And then you have to zoom back in, pick a project, and then just gain the right information, and then you have to take action towards that project. And the best way to take action towards that project is consistently, intentionally, quality over a long period of time. So I'm at the gym. That's it. I'm Big Bug Bro.